You can never start improving your communication skills if you never actually have anything to say, if you never actually have any words come out. So in this video, I'm going to teach you the one core skill of communication, the one core skill you have to focus on before you can start improving anything else. But first of all, I want to give you the understanding and the importance of why communication is the number one skill you have to start improving right now. So let me tell you this. I remember this one time that I was starting to get prepared for a party that I was going to go to that Saturday. And usually what I would do every single party was I would rely heavily on alcohol to make me more socially confident. So I would always, the first thing I did when I got to a party was take a shot or take a beer, because finally then I could start talking to people. But before every party, I would be so nervous that I would not eat any dinner. And if you know anything about alcohol, you know that drinking on an empty stomach is, for lack of better terms, not the best thing. You may know what happens or what can happen very easily if you don't eat anything beforehand. But before this party, I had decided that I was not going to drink. I was not going to drink. I wanted to make this as the beginning of my journey to becoming more socially confident, and therefore, I could not rely on the shortcut of alcohol. I could not rely on alcohol to make me more socially confident. I had to do this without it. So I got to that party. It took me 10 minutes to take my first shot. 10 minutes. What happened? I had decided that I was not going to drink, but it took me 10 minutes. Well, when I got there, I said hi to my closest friends. And then another guy came up to me that I've never met before, and he wanted to introduce himself. I said hi, I said my name, then I completely froze. Just completely, nothing came out, or nothing even came up in my mind. I had nothing to say. So I walked away from that, took a shot, and I went back to him, and then I could finally talk. It took me 10 minutes to take my first drink. Now looking back at it, that would be my everyday life if I never started working on my communication skills. Because after that, I finally took the decision that I was going to start improving my communication skills. I finally took the decision that alcohol should not be a shortcut that I always rely on. Instead, I have to go to the root cause of the problem, which was my social anxiety. So I had to work on my social confidence, and I had to work on articulating my thoughts. And articulating my thoughts is what this video is about, because I believe that is at the core, the first thing you have to practice when it comes to improve your communication skills. Because I said, you cannot practice anything else if you don't say anything. You cannot practice your body language if you have nothing to say, because you have nothing to match it to. You cannot practice emphasizing your point if you have no point to say. So articulating your thoughts, actually practicing your mind to mouth connection is going to be at the core of what you have to practice to start. But first of all, I want to break two very limiting beliefs, myths that I just do not agree with whatsoever. They are just complete bullshit. The first one is that good communication is only about what you say. I've heard more people that I can count say that just the last month or so, but it is complete bullshit. Because if I say I'm happy in a very sad tone, what do you think the other person will interpret that as? Do you think that they will think that I'm happy or that I'm sad? Well, the latter, of course, because I said it in a sad tone. They will not believe that I'm happy if I say it in a sad tone, and vice versa. If I sound very happy but say I'm sad, it would sound like I'm ironic. So how you say something is just as, or even a bit more important as what you say. And then the second myth is that being socially confident means not having to improve your communication skills. You think that being socially confident means that you're a good communicator. That is all there is to it. But communication is built on three parts. We have verbal, visual, and vocal habits. Now you can be very confident in your body language, but does that mean that you're always using the right words and structure in your verbal habits? Always using the right emphasis in your vocal habits? No, it does not. So being socially confident does not mean that you are a good communicator. And I'm not saying that to make you miserable, to break you down or make you shrink into yourself. Absolutely not. I just want to make you understand that just because you're socially confident does not mean you have nothing to improve when it comes to communication, because they are two parts of a whole. If you are socially confident, it will become easier for you to practice communication because you do not have that limiting factor breaking you down when you're trying to practice structure, for example. But also, if you start practicing your communication, you will become more confident because now you understand how to structure your message. You are sure that your body language message matches your message, for example. So there are two parts of a whole, and when you practice one of them, the other one will become greater as well. So those are the two limiting beliefs, the myths, that I wanted to break right away so you don't limit yourself to any of those. Now, let's get into actually practicing articulating your thoughts, but first of all, what is that? Kind of like what I'm doing with this video, because I have no script for this. I have 5 bullet points on my computer screen right here. Just topics of what I'm going to talk about to keep a structure, make it easier for me. So everything else, I'm just talking off the top of my mind. That is articulating your thoughts and actually practicing doing it. So articulating your thoughts means being able to clearly and coherently convey your message. But to put it more simply and really make an understanding of what that means, it means having things come to mind and actually being able to say them. That is what there is. Words come up in your mind and you say them. That is articulation. And practicing this is incredibly important because if you get into a pressured situation or a social situation where you have to add something to a conversation and nothing comes up, that will just make you more and more miserable for every time it happens, because now you're reinforcing the idea that you have nothing to say and that you're socially anxious. So as I said in the beginning of the video, in order to actually be able to practice communication as a skill when it comes to your vocal and verbal delivery, you have to practice articulating your thoughts, because if nothing comes to mind, what is there to practice? So what you're going to do, I'm going to make this very easy for you. You're going to, every single day, this is going to be difficult and it is not going to take that much time, but it's going to be difficult because talking fully improvised is difficult, especially if you're not used to it. So what you're going to do is practice articulating your thoughts every single day in any way you can. But what I highly recommend, the number one way that I truly believe is the best way to improve your articulation, is by sitting down 1 to 2 minutes every single day and actually recording a video of yourself just talking, fully improvised, just like I'm doing right now. And there are 2 things that you're going to think about when you do this. So you're going to talk for 1 minute, maybe up to 2 if you have more to say, but you are not allowed to use any filler words. If you do, you will not go to prison, but next time you have to use 1 less. So let's say you use 5, then you only have 4, use 3. But if you can get it down to 0 on the first try, good work. That would be absolutely amazing. But if you use a lot of filler words, you will have to step down a bit for every video you do. And then you're going to slow down when you talk. You're going to talk slowly. Because that way, you'll give your mind actual time to come up with the next thing to say. And not only that, but you'll also give it time to process it and give it structure before talking. You'll be able to actually use and put together the things so it is in an understandable and clear way. Because if you talk very fast, you will not give your mind any time to actually process or structure what you're trying to say. And your mouth is going to outrun your mind, which will eventually result in you just completely going blank, completely freezing, having nothing to say. Because you never give yourself any time to actually think. There's nothing wrong with pausing for 2 or 3 or maybe even 10 seconds to think. I've probably done it in this video. Just pause for a couple of seconds to think of the next thing to say and structure it before I speak to make it clear and understandable for you. Because if you talk extremely quickly all the time, you'll just run out of things to say because your mind just cannot keep up. So that is the practice that you're going to be doing every single day. And if you do this for 30 days, I can actually promise that you will see immense results, positive results. You will finally feel that you have things to say, and especially because you've now for 30 days practiced talking about 30 different topics. You have 30 different topics that you've practiced talking about for 1 to 2 minutes every single day. So you have 30 topics to talk about. in your next social situation or in your next meeting if you practice meeting talk, for example. So articulation is the first thing you have to start practicing when it comes to communication. And it doesn't really matter what level you're on, really, when it comes to communication. Articulation is still going to be the first skill because, again, if you have nothing to say, you're not even communicating. So actually coming up with things to say will be the first thing you have to practice and the one you will have to spend the most time on. And then later on, when you become better at that, you can start focusing on the other parts as well. And now hopefully you understand the importance of communication as a whole, the cost of what poor communication could be and the lack of communication and what it can actually result in for you. And if you want, you can create a bit more of that urgency by actually asking yourself, what is your lack of communication costing you? What is your poor communication costing you? And maybe you decided not to speak up in a meeting because nothing came up or you were afraid of how it's going to be interpreted, which resulted in another person getting acknowledgement for the immense amount of work that you put into that project. And now you're not going to get that promotion that you so really wanted. Or maybe you never told your feelings to that person, and now you're never going to find out how that relationship could have turned out. Writing down your cost of poor communication can be what gives you the urgency to improve. So I highly encourage you to do that as well. Now, if you like this type of content, I post videos like this every single week, multiple times a week. I teach you why communication is so important, how to improve your communication skills, different structures, frameworks, confidence, especially confidence, since that is something that I struggle with a lot myself. Public speaking, everything you need to improve your communication skills, I post on my channel. So I highly encourage you to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye bye.